Committee will come to order. I want to announce at the outset that there was a change in schedule on the Republican side this morning, and they have a caucus which I believe began at 9:30 and continues now. And as a consequence, Senator Graham reached out to us this morning and said he may not be able to attend or may come in late, and the same is true of his colleagues. But he understands we're going to proceed with this hearing because families have made great sacrifice to come out, and we want to give them that chance to have the hearing that's an important part of this process. Today we'll hear from 5 judicial nominees. Amir Ali, nominated to the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. Judge Melissa Dubose, nominated to the U.S. District Court for the District of Rhode Island. Judge Sunil Harjani, nominated to the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Illinois. Robert White, nominated to the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Michigan. Jasmine Yun, nominated to the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Virginia. I'll have the pleasure of introducing Judge Harjani and Mr. Ali. We also have several colleagues joining us to make introductions. First, I would turn at this point to Senator Graham, but since he's not here, we'll hold that until the possibility that he arrives a little later. We will now hear introductions of our nominees. First is Senator Reed of Rhode Island, who's here to introduce Judge Dubose.
Well, thank you very much, Chairman Durbin, and to all distinguished committee members. I am honored to introduce an outstanding jurist, the Honorable Melissa R. Dubose, the nominee for the United States District Court of the District of Rhode Island. Together, Senator Whitehouse and I were proud to recommend her to President Biden for this appointment to serve on the federal bench. Today, Judge Dubose is joined by her family, her partner Amy, and her sons Cameron and Wyatt, also her niece and her sister, I believe. I know they're proud to be witnessing this moment. Judge Dubose is exceptionally qualified, possessing a wealth of experience and a strong legal background. I'm confident she will serve Rhode Island and the American people with honor and distinction. She has proven herself to be someone who administers justice fairly and impartially and has led efforts to make the court system work better for everyone it serves. She would be an admirable successor to Judge William Smith, who is taking senior status. He served for 2 decades and is a model of professionalism and integrity. Judge Dubose was born and raised on the east side of Providence and went on to earn her undergraduate teaching certificate and degree from Providence College. She taught history and civics in Providence Public Schools for a decade, which is probably the best preparation to be a judge you can ever think of. Her desire to make the community safer and more just for all, especially her students, inspired her to pursue a legal career. After earning her J.D. from Roger Williams University School of Law, she joined the State Attorney General's office, where she worked in the juvenile division before moving on to criminal arraignments and violation hearings. She then worked for a decade as a corporate counsel for a Fortune Global 500 company called Schneider Electric, with a broad portfolio covering compliance, ethics, and trade. In 2019, then Governor Gina Raimondo, now Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo, appointed her to the state-level Rhode Island District Court. Judge Dubose is ready and qualified for this position. She has over 18 years of legal experience in both the public and private sector as an attorney and a judge, and with both criminal and civil cases in Rhode Island's busiest court. Rhode Island's legal community has united behind her with strong endorsements. All 5 of the current sitting judges in the Federal District Court have expressed their wholehearted support for her confirmation. In their words, Melissa is the daughter of Providence. She grew up here, worked here, studied here, brought up her family here, lawyered here, and now judges here. Melissa is an outstanding choice to join the federal bench. She is supremely qualified. Her ethics are impeccable, and her temperament is judicious. The Rhode Island police chiefs have also endorsed her, noting that Judge Dubose has developed a reputation for being forthright and committed to ensuring that all are afforded due process. She is passionate about wanting Rhode Islanders to have trust in the legal system, a value that all members of law enforcement share. Let me conclude by congratulating Judge Dubose for her extraordinary accomplishments and thanking the committee for the opportunity to introduce her today, and I certainly urge her confirmation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Reed. Let me say at the outset, incidentally, that members who come to the committee to introduce nominees, it's understandable that you may not be able to stay. It's no reflection on your nominees, but rather our busy schedule. Next up is Senator Whitehouse, also here to introduce Judge Dubose.
Well, as a member who is going to stay, since I'm on the Judiciary Committee, I will defer my comments so that my colleagues from other committees can make their introductions and be on the way to their busy schedules. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Whitehouse. Now we have Senator Stabenow to introduce Mr. White.
Well, thank you and good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's really an honor to be here with my partner, Senator Peters, to introduce Robert J. White, who President Biden nominated at our recommendation to serve as U.S. District Judge for the Eastern District of Michigan. He's here today with his wife, a retired U.S. Army Captain, Dr. Jessica White, his parents, Dr. Lewis and Dr. Mary White, and his brother, Andrew White. And I know his 4-year-old daughter and 1-year-old son are very supportive of Daddy, but understandably not able to be here today. So Robert and Jessica are both from Michigan. It's where they grew up. It's where they knew they wanted to raise their own family. In fact, Robert is proud that his children are 4th-generation residents of Huntington Woods. And Michigan is so fortunate to count this family among our residents because they are deeply dedicated to public service. Robert has spent his career upholding the rule of law and keeping our communities safe. Since 2018, he has served as an assistant U.S. attorney in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Michigan, handling civil and criminal cases involving violent crime and healthcare fraud. And that has been very bad news for criminals. Mr. White helped lock up 6 members of one of Detroit's most violent gangs, which was terrorizing a neighborhood and committing crimes including murder, shootings, robberies, and drug dealing. In 2022, Mr. White successfully prosecuted a Canadian truck driver who tried to drive across the U.S. border with 313 pounds of cocaine hidden in his semi-trailer. Mr. White began his career as a prosecutor in the Western District of Texas, where he focused on fighting transnational organized crime, including Mexican cartels. And he has been very good at his job. He was named the Outstanding Federal Attorney of the Year in 2017 by the El Paso Bar Association. 2018, he was recognized by the FBI for his outstanding skills as a prosecutor. In 2020, he received an award for excellence from the Council of the Inspectors General. And last year, the Homeland Security Investigations Office in Detroit named him its Prosecutor of the Year. It is no surprise that the American Bar Association Standing Committee on the Federal Judiciary unanimously rated Mr. White as well qualified. He is an outstanding nominee, Mr. Chairman, and I wholeheartedly support his nomination and his continued service to the people of Michigan. I urge the committee to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Stabenow. Senator Peters.
Well, thank you, Chairman Durbin and Ranking Member Graham, for holding this hearing. And I, too, am pleased to introduce an exemplary Michigander, the nominee for the federal bench, Robert Jerome White, to serve on the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Michigan. And I'd also like to take a moment, along with my colleague, Senator Stabenow, to acknowledge Mr. White's family, who is here today with us. His wife, Jessica White, his brother, Andrew White, and his parents, Lewis and Mary White, and we thank them for being here with him today. Mr. White, as we've heard, has served as an assistant United States attorney for nearly a decade, first in the Western District of Texas and then in the Eastern District of Michigan since 2018. And prior to that experience, he worked as an associate in a private criminal defense practice. He's a graduate of the University of Michigan and the Chicago-Kent College of Law. Mr. White's range of experience as both a defense attorney and a prosecutor will help him serve effectively on the federal bench. Over the course of his career, he has practiced before multiple federal circuits, district courts, as well as state courts. As an assistant U.S. attorney in Texas and in Michigan, he prosecuted complex cases on drug trafficking, organized crime, financial regulatory violations, and the dark web. Through these roles, Mr. White has worked across many levels of our legal system, has tackled a wide variety of caseload that would translate well to the purview of the district court. More important than this impressive resume is Mr. White's remarkable commitment, discretion, and good judgment. His supervisors point out the skill set he has honed through a record of challenging cases. His coworkers praise his generous spirit and willingness to serve as a mentor for younger colleagues. Even defense attorneys who have gone up against him in court have seen Mr. White's commitment to fairness and impartiality firsthand and have recommended him wholeheartedly for this position. He has also earned numerous awards for his work. He's been honored by the El Paso Bar Association, the Council of Inspector General, and the U.S. Department of Justice. And I was honored to help celebrate his recognition as the Homeland Security Investigations Federal Prosecutor in the year 2023. The federal bench is a pillar of American democracy. We need qualified, committed citizens to serve as judges in order to uphold the rule of law, keep our communities safe, and restore faith in our democratic institutions. Robert White has the experience and the temperament necessary for that service, and I have every confidence he will be confirmed by the Senate and will honorably represent Michigan and the entire country on the federal bench. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Senator Peters. We now have Senator Mark Warner of Virginia here to introduce Ms. Yun.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow members of the committee. Today, it's my distinct honor to introduce my fellow Virginian and an outstanding public servant, Jasmine Yun, for nomination to the Western District of Virginia. I was hearing my colleagues from Michigan and struck me, they're nominating an individual, here to introduce an individual that was a fourth-generation Michigander. Jasmine's path to this position is a little bit different. She came to our country at age 14 from South Korea, speaking virtually no English. So in 8th grade, she spent her time reading the dictionary and watching American TV. And by the time she got into high school, she spoke fluent English. Thanks to that ethic of hard work, she developed such a stellar record that she was a 2-time graduate of the University of Virginia, both undergrad and law school. Before applying to law school, she received the Jack Kent Foundation Scholarship, a 3-year full ride to the law school, again, showing her both academic tenor and her dedication to hard work. One of the things I think when Tim and I were sitting with her, she spoke incredibly movingly about how before she went to law school, she became a U.S. citizen, and that unique ability that is so American that I could move to Korea tomorrow and I'd never be Korean. Only in this country can someone come first generation and by taking that oath become an American and through her distinguished career now stand before this committee nominated to be a district judge. Following law school, she clerked for the Eastern District, again, with extraordinarily good work. She then went to work as an assistant U.S. attorney at in the Eastern District. Again, her hard work was so notable that she won the FBI's Director Award, given for outstanding prosecutorial skills. Upon conclusion of her time as a prosecutor, she came back to what probably is one of her more difficult positions as a lawyer in the counsel's office at UVA. And if anybody who's followed virtually any institution of higher learning, and particularly UVA over the last couple of years, that was a tricky place to navigate through with both calm and nuanced approach to a lot of very important issues. She and her husband, Chris, settled in the Western District, and Tim and I have been able to nominate a lot of individuals to this court, but boy, Jasmine's community-oriented mindset, her qualifications, her numerous accolades make her, I think, an extraordinary nominee for the Western District of Virginia. I hope this committee will take up her nomination quickly and pass her out. You will have that same kind of pride in her accomplishment that Senator Kane and I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Warner. Senator Kane?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. This is such a happy occasion for Senator Warner and I. Many of you know that Mark and I met in law school 44 years ago. I became a lawyer, and he it is almost. We knew neither of our wives at the time,
We didn't meet in the library.
I became a lawyer. Mark did better. He became a client. But we take these nominations very seriously. In particular, I practiced civil rights law in the Eastern District and Western District of Virginia for 18 years. And so the quality of the federal bench in Virginia is something that we're really devoted to. Mark did a good job of talking about Jasmine Yun's career: private practice, judicial clerkship, U.S. Attorney's Office, University of Virginia, now in corporate compliance for one of Virginia's primary employers, Capital One. She really has a wide breadth of legal experience. We've never had an Asian American member of the Article III bench in Virginia. And as Mark pointed out, to have come to the United States at age 14 speaking virtually no English, and 4 years later to get a full scholarship to UVA. When she graduated from undergrad, she received the award as the outstanding undergraduate or graduate the year she graduated, and she also received the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation scholarship to go to UVA Law School. Truly an amazing record. Let me just say one more thing. People who have degrees from UVA are quite impressed with themselves. That's no comment on Senator Whitehouse. I'm talking about other people. But the only thing that makes that an endearing quality is they're even more impressed with other UVA graduates who do public service. UVA has a tremendous track record of putting people into the Peace Corps, putting people into foreign service and other public service positions. Mark and I, when we were governor, we appointed the board of the University of Virginia, and we know this institution very, very well. In my 30 years in public life, I have never known of a UVA graduate who has the devotion of the UVA alums that Jasmine Yun does. And that says an awful lot. They're extremely proud of her. She's here with her husband and her daughters and her aunt and her sister and their parents. I know her family is extremely proud of her. She would be a tremendous, tremendous asset to our federal judiciary, and that's why Mark and I are so proud to be here to introduce her today.
Thanks to both the senators from Virginia and now Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a terrific honor and joy to join Senator Reid in introducing Judge Melissa Dubose and to welcome to the Judiciary Committee not only Judge Dubose, but her partner, Amy, their sons, Cameron and Wyatt, her sister, Dion, and her niece, Hannah. You often hear me talk about how important honest courtrooms are to our system of government. An honest courtroom protects people's rights, maintains order, and holds wrongdoers to account, all without fear or favor. There's no better way to ensure Rhode Islanders can walk into an honest courtroom than to confirm a judge like Melissa Dubose, whose professional experience, intellect, integrity, and grit will make her an exemplary federal judge. A native Rhode Islander, Judge Dubose has served on the Rhode Island District Court since 2019, where she oversees a heavy and fast-paced docket of criminal and civil matters. Before that, she spent nearly 10 years in-house as corporate counsel at Schneider Electric, a Fortune 500 company, where she handled complex, high-stakes issue of federal law and compliance. She began her legal career as a prosecutor with the Rhode Island Attorney General's office, where she spent significant time in the courtroom on a daily basis. This is all pretty impressive, but it's even more so when you consider how Judge Dubose got here. She began as a night student at Roger Williams Law School while working full-time as a history teacher in the Providence Public Schools. Judge Dubose, your former students will be very proud. I'm not the only one who believes Judge Dubose is eminently qualified for the federal bench. The professionals who know her best agree. That's why she's received an outpouring of support from virtually every element of the Rhode Island legal community, from law enforcement to public defenders, and from every level of the Rhode Island judiciary. In a small state like Rhode Island, Mr. Chairman, we know each other, and the legal community is small and particularly well knows each other. And the outpouring of support Senator Reid and I have had for our selection of Judge Dubose to nominate for this position has been really remarkable. The Rhode Island Police Chiefs Association laud Judge Dubose's exemplary and wide-ranging record of public service and reputation for being forthright and committed to ensuring that all are afforded due process. They note, as Senator Reed mentioned, that she's passionate about wanting Rhode Islanders to have trust in the legal system, a value that all members of law enforcement share. Prosecutors in the Rhode Island Attorney General's office, led by Attorney General Peter Nerona, former United States Attorney, say they are impressed by Melissa Dubose's commitment to seek justice in all cases assigned and her appreciation for the day-to-day and institutional challenges faced by law enforcement. They appreciate her practical approach to problem solving, her easy accessibility, and her innate mindfulness as to the human, real-life consequences of her decisions. The Rhode Island Public Defender's Office also praises Judge Dubose for her wealth of legal experience, strong legal background, and integrity, humility, and grace. The Rhode Island Supreme Court reports that Judge Dubose has the qualities that are critically important to becoming an outstanding member of the federal bench: experience, education, integrity, judicial temperament, and commitment to public service. We received letters echoing the sentiment from every other level of the state judiciary, and without burdening everybody with my remarks while we're trying to get to the panel, let me just ask unanimous consent that all those letters be put into the record of this hearing.
Without objection.
At the end of the day, the most important expressions of confidence in Judge Dubose came from the colleagues who she will join if confirmed. A letter to this committee signed by all members of our United States District Court states, Melissa's integrity is beyond reproach, her professional competence is varied and deep, and her judicial temperament is exemplary. Everyone on our court is pleased at the possibility of welcoming Judge Dubose to the federal court if she is fortunate enough to be confirmed by the Senate. As I said, we know each other in Rhode Island, and when the judges of our district court offer that thought, it is significant. They conclude thus: Melissa is a daughter of Providence. She grew up here, worked here, studied here, brought up her family here, lawyered here, and now judges here. Melissa is an outstanding choice to join the federal branch, supremely qualified. Her ethics are impeccable. Her temperament is judicious. And I'll just add in closing, it is no wonder, given this warm welcome, that upon his decision to assume senior status, a decision which created this vacancy, the federal judge whose seat Judge Dubose has been nominated to fill actually encouraged her to apply. I really can't think of a better endorsement than that, and I'm delighted, Mr. Chairman, that Ms. Dubose is our recommended nominee and was recommended by President Biden, and we look forward to seeing her through to a safe confirmation.
Thank you, Senator Whitehouse. It's now my honor to introduce Judge Sunil Harjani, as well as Mr. Ali, who is seeking nomination to the U.S. District Court. I have the honor this morning of introducing Judge Harjani, nominated to the Northern District of Illinois. Since 2019, he has served as a U.S. Magistrate Judge on this court. After receiving his undergraduate and law degrees from Northwestern University, Judge Harjani worked at Jenner and Block and served and clerked for Honorable Suzanne Conlon of the Northern District. Since 2004, Judge Harjani has dedicated his legal career to public service. First as U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, and later as Assistant U.S. Attorney in the Office for the Northern District. As a federal prosecutor for more than 10 years, Judge Harjani litigated a range of cases, including commodities fraud, investment fraud, and corporate misconduct. His work as an Assistant U.S. Attorney earned him a letter of support from former U.S. Attorney Patrick Fitzgerald, who served both George W. Bush and Obama administrations. In his letter of support, Mr. Fitzgerald noted that Judge Harjani, quote, worked hard, showed excellent judgment, as well as conducting himself with, quote, the highest integrity. In 2019, the district judges of Northern District of Illinois selected him to serve as a U.S. magistrate, making him the first South Asian American to hold this position. I look forward to learning more during this hearing about his wide breadth of experience and welcome him and his family. Finally, we have Amir Ali, nominated to the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. Born in Kingston, Ontario, Mr. Ali received his undergraduate degree from the University of Waterloo and his JD, magna cum laude, from Harvard Law School. After law school, he clerked for Judge Raymond Fisher on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit and for Justice Marshall Rothstein on the Supreme Court of Canada. Mr. Ali then joined Jenner and Block as a litigation associate, focusing on civil litigation, regulatory matters, and appeals. He has worked for the MacArthur Justice Center since 2017 in Washington, currently serves as president and executive director. His practice at the firm has included civil and criminal litigation at all levels, federal and state, as well as work before federal administrative agencies. He's argued 3 cases before the Supreme Court. In each of these cases, the court adopted his position. If confirmed, Mr. Ali will be the first Arab American to serve as judge on the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. Representative Eleanor Holmes Norton was unable to join us this morning, but strongly backs his nomination and asked that I enter her statement in the record, which I will do with unanimous consent. Congratulations to Mr. Ali and his family. With that, it's time to begin with the panel. We'll do the transition of name tags and then ask the nominees to come forward. If the nominees would approach the table, please. Please remain standing.
No, I've got a important question.
Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record reflect that all 5 nominees, thank goodness, have answered in the affirmative. Mr. Ali, please proceed with your opening statement.
Thank you, Chair Durbin, to the ranking member and the whole committee for considering my confirmation. I also want to thank Congresswoman Norton for recommending me for this position and to her Federal Law Enforcement Nominating Committee as well. And I want to thank President Biden for nominating me. It is the honor of a lifetime, Mr. President. I'd like to take just a minute to recognize some family who are here with me and some who are not. I'm joined by my parents who emigrated from the desert in Egypt about 45 years ago to snow-filled Canada in search of greater economic opportunity for the children they would have. My father, Hatem, was a successful engineer in Egypt, and my mom, a professional accountant. Like many immigrants when they came to North America, they studied again for new diplomas that would help them find work here. Together, my parents instilled in me and my siblings a hard work ethic. My sister Sarah, here with me today, is an engineer. My brother Sammy, who couldn't make it today, is a cardiologist. Following my siblings' lead, I have worked hard. Since age 14, my jobs have ranged from cleaning dishes and prepping food in a kitchen, to stocking shelves, to working in a manufacturing plant, to paying my way to a degree in software engineering. My parents and siblings are undoubtedly responsible for giving me the audacity to dream that I could sit before you here today. I'm also joined by my wife, Katie, the love of my life. Katie, you are my rock. Our children, 3 and 5 years old, were given the opportunity to come here today, and without skipping a beat, they asked if they could go to the playground instead. I assure you they meant no offense to the committee. I want to recognize Katie's father, aunt, and uncle who are here today, and whose family had its own incredible journey to the United States. Katie's mother could not make the trip here today, but I know she is smiling proudly from afar. My and Katie's grandparents are no longer with us, but I know they too are looking down, smiling today. I especially want to recognize my grandmother, who I knew as Mama Aman and as one of my very early best buddies in life. And I want to recognize Katie's grandmother, Margaret Marshall, who became another buddy of mine much later in life when she was 95. My family means everything to me. I'm grateful for the sacrifices they made to give me, Katie, and our kids the incredible life we have today. Thank you, Senators.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Judge Dubose.
Good morning, Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, and committee members. I'd like to extend my sincerest thanks for your convening this hearing and for considering my nomination for a seat on the U.S. District Court for the District of Rhode Island. I'd like to offer a special thanks to my hometown senators, both Jack Reed and Sheldon Whitehouse. As a native daughter, we have a long tradition in Rhode Island of holding our senators in high esteem. As a kid growing up, it was Senator Claiborne Pell and John H. Chafee. I have no doubt that future generations are going to hold both Senator Whitehouse and Reed as part of that pantheon of tremendous public servants who never forgot the folks at home. It's with great humility that I offer thanks to President Biden for this extraordinary nomination. I am truly honored. Joining me here today is my partner, Amy. I want to thank you, Amy, for blessing me with over 2 decades of unwavering love, support, laughter, and patience. Amy and I have 2 remarkable sons are here with me today. My son Cameron, who is celebrating a birthday, so happy birthday, Cammy, and my son Wyatt. I want to thank each of you for gracing me with that special love that is reserved for mothers and sons. Also joining me here today is my big sister and first teacher, Dion, and her daughter, the beautiful Hannah. My friend Nisha is here today, and I want to thank her for her enduring love and her friendship. Watching from home, my sister Lisa and Heather are viewing along with my nieces and nephews and family members back in my home state of Rhode Island, down in Jupiter, Florida, and out in California. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the wonderful parents, Amy's parents, Bill and Jane Harrington. I want to thank them for welcoming me into their family and for being just the most amazing grandparents. Thank you, and I love you. It's important for me to recognize and give thanks to Commerce Secretary and former Rhode Island Governor Gina Raimondo. Your nomination and my subsequent appointment to the Rhode Island District Court has been the honor of a lifetime, and I hope that I've made you proud. To my judicial colleagues, court administrators, clerks, sheriff deputies, my former students, my neighbors, and my friends, I want to thank you for the overwhelming support. Finally, I have to acknowledge and recognize the love of my life who was always with me, and that's my mom, the late, great Reverend Sheila Dubose. I touched down in D.C. on Monday on what would have been her 75th birthday, and I know that would have been just thrilled to be here. One of the greatest lessons, if I may, that my mom taught me from a very early age is that on certain occasions, or on most occasions, it's okay to talk to strangers, that we don't have to meet those that we don't know with suspicion. And so when I think about that lesson and seeing people and appreciating and respecting the humanity in people, that has guided me and has served me well throughout my entire professional and personal life as a Providence Public School teacher, as a state prosecutor, as an in-house corporate attorney, and certainly as a district court judge. So it is in that spirit that I thank you and I welcome your questions.
Thank you very much, Judge. Judge Harjani.
Good morning, Chair Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, distinguished members of the committee. It is a great honor to be here today. Thank you to President Biden for this incredible opportunity. I have dedicated my career to public service, and the opportunity to serve as a United States District Judge is a continuation of my American dream and my public service journey. I would like to thank my home state senators, Senators Durbin and Duckworth, for their support and recommendation. My wife and I are proud Illinoisans. I was born in Joliet, Illinois, my wife born in Springfield, Illinois, and we are so grateful for Senator Durbin and Duckworth's service to our great state. I would like to introduce you to my family, who's here today, and my friends. My parents, Ramesh and Sharmila Harjani, are here. I'm a first-generation American and the first in my family to graduate from college and law school. And I thank my parents for the gift of being born in this country and the gift of an education. I'm also joined here by my brother, Anil Harjani, as well as my 2 children, high schoolers who are skipping school today, my daughter, who's a junior in high school, and my son, who is a freshman in high school. My sister-in-law, Sharon, and her kids, my nephew and niece, could not be here today, but I'm sure they're watching online. I also want to thank my chamber staff, including 2 who are here today, Erica Akapol, my current law clerk, and Brittany Kavikoff, my immediate past law clerk. I have been fortunate, Senators, to work with amazing people in our very own Dirksen building in Chicago, our federal courthouse, and I'd like to acknowledge the district judges who selected me 5 years ago to serve as a United States magistrate judge. It's been a true honor to serve with them, and I look forward to the opportunity of joining them as a district judge. Finally, here with me today is my Northwestern Law School classmate and my wife, Priya, who has been the biggest supporter of my career. Senators, I'm immensely grateful for this opportunity. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I look forward to your questions today. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Judge. Mr. White?
Thank you, Senator. I'd like to begin by thanking President Biden for his nomination. Words cannot describe my gratitude. If confirmed, I pledge to continue my obligation to support the Constitution of the United States and faithfully apply our laws. I would like to thank you, Chair Senator Durbin, and I'm especially grateful to my home state senators, Senators Stabenow and Peters, and their Merit Selection Committee. I would not be here today without the support of my family, especially my parents. They instilled in me the value of education and a commitment to public service. My mother, a nurse, raised 3 boys while finishing her PhD the same time I finished my JD. She also served as our city commissioner in a 1 square mile town, a nonpartisan position for which she was compensated $1 a year. My brothers, Andrew and Max, their wives and children, have been with me every step of the way. I'm amazed daily by the love and support I receive from my wife, Jessica. She's an incredible mother to our 2 children and a supportive wife. In addition to recognizing her support, I'd also like to acknowledge her service. She previously served our country as an optometrist in the United States Army, deploying to the Middle East and retiring at the rank of captain. Today, she continues to serve with a nonprofit that provides free eye examinations and glasses to children at schools most in need. I would not be here without her support. Next, I would like to acknowledge the support I've received from mentors and friends, to include Judge Shalina Kumar, Jason Turkish, and Nikhil Bhagat. Thank you for your support. In any legal career, there are certain individuals you both aspire to be like and look to for guidance. In law school and in private practice, those people didn't just teach me how to try a case. From them, I learned the value of public service, the value in taking appointed and pro bono work, and the essential role defense counsel play in an adversarial system. I've spent the last decade of my life with the Department of Justice, and anyone who has ever had the privilege of serving there would tell you, you cannot succeed at anything alone. It takes a team. For that, I would like to especially recognize the attorneys, paralegals, support staff, and agents who I've had the privilege of working with. I know that with their help, we have been able to build the types of impact cases that make a difference. It has never stopped being a privilege to appear in federal courts from Texas to Michigan and announce my appearance on behalf of the United States. Lastly, I would like to congratulate my fellow nominees. Thank you, Senator, for the opportunity to provide introductory remarks. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. White. Ms. Yun?
Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Graham, and the members of the committee, thank you for convening this hearing today. I am deeply grateful to President Biden for the honor of this nomination and to Senators Warner and Kaine for warm introduction. First, I would like to give my thanks to God, who has first guided me to this amazing country and ultimately to this day. He has so incredibly blessed me, both with my village of people whose love and support sustain me today and every day, and with opportunities that a young, scared, but grateful non-English speaking immigrant could only imagine in her wildest dreams. When I was 14, my parents Gukjung and Taki Yun moved my sister Sunny and me from South Korea, where I was born and raised, to this great nation. They did so to pursue better lives and opportunities for their children. After we arrived, my parents ran a small cookie store inside a shopping mall. Although we struggled financially for years, they worked tirelessly their entire lives so that they could build the American dream that my sister and I could live. My parents taught me the value of hard work, pursuit of excellence, and thinking of others before myself. Mom, Dad, and Sonny, I am so proud of our American journey, and this day is for you. I'd like to now acknowledge my amazing husband, Chris Kavanaugh, the love of my life, without whose love and support, none of my professional and personal accomplishments would have been possible. And our pride and joy, our beautiful daughters, Zoe and Quinn, who are the reason why I want to make this world a more just place than I found it. All my life, I've been blessed with a deep reservoir of encouragement and support, and I like to acknowledge the rest of my small village, my Aunt CJ, my niece Ella, my in-laws, extended family, friends, colleagues, and mentors from all over the country, including the University of Virginia, UVA Law, Crowell and Mooring, the U.S. Attorney's offices in the Western and Eastern District of Virginia, and my Capital One family, especially John Morton and Jim Walsh. I'm grateful for all the judges in the Western District of Virginia for their kindness and support, and especially for Chief Judge Michael Urbanski, whose accomplished career on the bench I only wish to emulate. And I'm honored to have clerked for the Honorable James C. Kacharis, who has shown me what it means to be a fair and thoughtful jurist. This country has given me and my family so much ever since the day we arrived. I have received so much in my lifetime and career, and I'm ready to pay it forward. I cannot think of a greater honor than to serve as a federal district court judge in the Western District of Virginia. Thank you, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Yun. Now we'll ask the members of the committee to consider asking questions of the nominees, and I'll start that. Mr. Ali, my advice to most young people who think they might someday want to be a judge is don't put anything in writing, because the Senate Judiciary Committee is going to read it and draw their conclusions as to who you really, really are. We have had some nominees who have produced poetry, which some members of the committee have judged proof positive that they are Marxist. So I'm prepared for almost any conclusion. You've submitted numerous amicus briefs over the course of your career as a litigator, and on some of those briefs you've been joined by organizations from across the political spectrum, including the Cato Institute. Speak about some of the issues you've worked on that seem to bring together unusual political allies, as well as why you think these issues are so important.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to that part of my advocacy. And that has been in a role as advocate, which I understand is fundamentally different than the role I've been nominated here for today. I am, in my role as an advocate, really proud of the work we've been able to do to build bridges and build coalitions on issues mostly related to government accountability. And as you noted, Senator, it's been with organizations like the Cato Institute. It's been with the support and working closely with law enforcement organizations. It's been with organizations, even the Alliance Defending Freedom and the Second Amendment Foundation, and other organizations that people sometimes would be surprised to know could come together and argue in favor of a more just system in that advocacy.
Judge Harjani, you were one of the lead trial counsels in U.S. versus Kosia, which was the first case in this country to prosecute a trader for commodity spoofing and flash trading. It is not uncommon for members of the committee to query nominees about points of law and areas of law. And I would hate to be tested on the issue of commodity spoofing. But since this was a case in your background, could you describe it to this committee?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. I had the great privilege while being an assistant United States attorney to do the first trial prosecution involving flash trading or spoofing, which is essentially a commodities fraud scheme whereby individual traders will input trades that are not meant to be executed, that are meant to be canceled in order to dupe other traders from putting in orders and trading. And as a result, the schemer is taking the opposite side of the trade. So they push prices up, they make a profit. If they push prices down, they make a profit. And it essentially is a way to play with the markets and to play with supply and demand in an illegal way, because it's done not to execute trades, but to trick others. I was very grateful to be a trial lawyer in that case. received convictions on all counts against the defendant and a sentence of imprisonment. And as you've noted, Senator, I've devoted my life to protecting victims of investment fraud. I have felt very strongly that victims need their day in court, their voices need to be heard, and that is the duty of prosecutors to protect them. And that was my career before I joined the bench, and I'm very grateful to have that opportunity. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Yun, members often question nominees based on their background as to whether they come with a bias toward defense, a bias toward prosecution. In the course of your practice, you've worked on both sides, both tables. Tell me a little bit about the issue of bias and why those who appear before you, should you become district court judge, which I believe you will, can feel that they have a chance.
Thank you for the opportunity, Senator. In my career, I had the great privilege of working both ends of the aisle, being a defense attorney as well as a federal prosecutor. I've also worked in the areas of both civil and criminal law. If you look at my record, you will see that I have always served my clients fairly and impartially and was a zealous advocate for all of them. With that, I also understand the great responsibility of our judges to be fair and impartial and make decisions without fear or favor. Should I be so fortunate to be confirmed, I will look to my vast experience in both areas and will make sure that anyone who comes before me in the courtroom will have a fair shake. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much. I see ranking member has arrived.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. Senator Graham, if you'd like to make an opening remark or ask questions.
Thank you. Very quickly, I'll make an opening remark. Now, first, Senator Kennedy, and I'll ask questions in a minute. So, the reason I'm late, I apologize, is that we're trying to find a way to move forward as a conference and really as a country on securing our border and helping Ukraine. To my Democratic colleagues, the bipartisan bill has many good things in it. It's inadequate to the task. I have some ideas to make it better. I would like to pursue those ideas, see if we can have more discussion about securing our border. I told people back home, Senator Durbin, that I want to help Ukraine. If you lose in Ukraine, you'll put the world in a great peril. If you don't fix your border, you're putting America in great peril. I intend to try to do both. I don't believe we have made a genuine, full-throated effort yet to secure our border. Couple ideas. The Trump-Obama years, 5,600 parolees, individual assessments, 2 years of the Biden administration, over 800,000. I want to put a cap on parole. I think the bill doesn't do that. I don't trust the Biden administration to stop paroling people in, so let's put a cap on it. You may not like that idea. When is it an emergency? 5,000 is not an emergency per day. It's a catastrophe. That's what the Border Patrol Union said. I'd like to take it down to 1,000. At that point, we have the authority to shut the border down. I've got a few ideas that I think would be substantially better than what's been proposed. So I want to pursue those ideas. Then we'll turn to our friends in Ukraine, and I will be very glad to help them because we need to help them, Israel, and Taiwan. So that's why I'm late. I don't know how this movie ends. And to all of you, congratulations on your nomination. And I'll yield to Senator Kennedy if he's next.
Congratulations to all of you. Judge Dubose, am I saying your name right?
That's correct, Senator.
Okay. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to be direct. I think most of my questions are designed to be yes or no. Are you still a Marxist?
Thank you for the question, Senator.
You don't have to thank me. We'll say you are welcome.
I am not, nor have ever been a Marxist.
Well, you gave an interview in 2000 to the feminist press. In fact, you didn't turn it over to us. We had to ask for it. We found it on our own. And you then turned it over to us. And this is what you were describing your time working in a coffee shop. You said, quote, the kids would come into the cafe all the time. We'd talk about what they're doing. We'd talk about their classes. And I was in my Marxist phase. So you used to be a Marxist, but you're not now?
No, Senator, if I may, the context of the first of that interview, I had no idea that that interview was something that was going to be published. I did an interview with the
Did you mean what you said, whether it was
No,
published or not, or whether we'd find it?
No,
Trying to understand what you believe. You
No,
said I was in my Marxist phase.
Thank you, Senator.
Still in your Marxist phase, or was that in the past?
No, Senator, if I may explain.
Sure.
I was a political science major. When I graduated from college, I immersed myself in a ton of political theory. I read Hobbes, I read Locke, I read Rousseau, I read Marx. I went through a phase where I was into Eastern religion, where I read the Tao Te Ching, the Analects of Confucius. So I suspect, and I don't know that quote with the article, I don't know if she was referring to what I was studying at the time, but as a political science major and as a theorist and someone who was considering teaching a course in political theory, I immersed myself in those
but
things.
she didn't refer to anything. She meaning, I assume you're referring to the reporter who interviewed. These are your words, and you didn't say I'm in my Hobbes phase. You didn't say second. I'm in my Locke phase. You didn't say I'm in my Rousseau phase. You said I was in my Marxist phase. And my question is real simple. Are you still a Marxist?
Senator, I've never been a Marxist, and I'm not a Marxist today.
Okay. All right. Have you ever served as lead counsel in a federal bench trial?
No, Senator. With my experience as both a state prosecutor, as an in-house counsel at Schneider Electric, doing very complex compliance and regulatory work, and my work as a district court sitting judge, handling general jurisdiction.
Yes, ma'am. I've read your resume. I just want to get through these questions. Have you ever served as lead counsel in a federal jury trial?
No, Senator, I have not.
Okay. Have you ever attended a federal jury trial? And
No,
watched
Senator.
it live?
No, Senator.
Have you ever watched a federal jury trial on TV?
I don't believe that federal trials are televised, so no, I have not, Senator.
Have you ever watched any trial on television?
Senator, I handle and preside over trials every single day as a state district court judge. We follow the rules of evidence, criminal procedure, civil procedure. So I feel that with my experience, that I am well suited and capable to make the transition from our state district court to our U.S. district court.
Okay. When you were practicing law, did you ever draft a motion or a brief applying the federal rules of evidence?
No, Senator. As a state prosecutor...
I'm sorry, you said what?
I said no, Senator.
No, okay. When you were practicing law, did you ever draft a motion or a brief applying the federal rules of civil procedure?
Well, I believe that there were times at Schneider Electric giving advice to business units regarding the federal acquisition regulations, that I would draft briefs to give them counsel as to how to be compliant with the federal rules. So in that respect, the answer would be yes.
Okay. What's an interpleader action?
Interpleader action is a third party who's going to intervene in a civil suit. They're not a primary party.
Okay. What's voir dire?
Voir dire is the process with which jurors are questioned by the state and by defense and prosecutors to serve on a
Have
panel.
you ever conducted a voir dire in federal court?
Not in federal court.
Okay. I'm going to yield back 6 seconds, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Whitehouse.
Just to clarify the record, Judge Dubose, do you recall when that interview was done, the interview that Senator Kennedy referred to?
No, Senator, I don't. And if I recall, and I was brought to my attention yesterday, that was never an interview that I did I thought was going to be published. I never reviewed it. It was an undergrad student who was interested in teaching, who spent 20 minutes.
What were you doing at the time?
I was teaching.
So this was before you even went to law school. This was
Yeah, I was really early.
many years ago.
It was, Senator.
Perhaps during the time when my colleague Senator Kennedy was a Democrat. Showing that people can change their views, even if it were true that you were then in a Marxist phase.
Senator Graham.
Mr. Chairman, my name was invoked.
I noticed.
As a proud Democrat, we were like
My
that part of
name
your
was
history.
invoked, Mr. Chairman. Now, I just want to let the record
reflect, and I love Senator Whitehouse.
Uh-oh.
But I'll tell you one thing, I've never been a Marxist. I've never been a Marxist. And I've never admitted I was a Marxist and then not turned the document over to this committee. We had to find it. And we did. And now the testimony under oath today is, I didn't say that. The reporter said that. No, the witness said that. And then the testimony is, well, I didn't mean it to become public. That's not the issue. So, if we won't get personal here, we can.
Senator Graham?
Thank you. Let's agree on the following. A Louisiana Democrat's probably not a Marxist. But the bottom line is, why wasn't it available to the committee, Ms. Dubose?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I had no idea that the article existed. When I did the interview with that undergrad student, it was for a paper for a class.
It's something you didn't know about.
I was in an interview with a young lady who was interested in teaching as an undergrad, and I was just sharing my transition, how I went to be into teaching.
I understand. Your testimony is, this is not something I've seen before. Had you seen it before?
No, Senator.
Okay, so if you hadn't seen it, you didn't know about it, so that's why you didn't turn it over.
That's correct.
Okay, just make sure of that. Mr. Ali, is that right?
Yes, Senator.
You were head of the MacArthur or Associated MacArthur Justice Center, is that correct?
That's right, Senator. I've been with the organization, yes.
Okay, and what role did you play there?
Well, initially, about 7 years ago, I started with the organization to open its DC office just as an attorney there, as the first attorney there. And then I was later promoted to be the director of the DC office. And then beginning at the very end of 2021, beginning of 2022, I've become the executive director of the organization.
Are you pretty familiar with the work of the organization, I would assume, right?
Yeah, Senator, we're a pretty large, medium-sized firm that is litigation-focused. Right. And so we have, at any given time, hundreds of cases. But yes, I'm familiar with the general work of the organization, of course.
So I'm reading an article here that talked about a spokesperson described after the George Floyd episode, terrible thing that happened for the country. You said, or some spokesperson said, you want to lead a movement toward making police departments obsolete, that the group lobbied the New Orleans City Council to pass a resolution committing to sharp reductions in law enforcement in the city's 2020 budget and redirection of those funds to housing, healthcare, education, among other priorities. Is that accurate?
Senator, a colleague of mine actually sent me that article in advance of this hearing. Yeah. A colleague was surprised by it. Needless to say, yeah. I was surprised and quite disconcerted by it. Okay. I could tell you, Senator, that I looked into those events. All of those first took place before I was ever executive director of the organization.
Were you a member of the organization then?
I was in the D.C. office. None of those events described took place related to the D.C. office.
So do you disavow those statements?
Well, Senator, yes, absolutely. The organization, let me be very clear about this. I have never advocated for taking away police funding. I would not take that position. The MacArthur Justice Center has not taken that position. I think that's why this colleague sent it to me surprised. That's why I was disconcerted and actually looked into this. I can say very clearly I had no role.
So that's not you. I mean, you disavow the comments that were made in this article by some spokesperson before you got there, before you became executive director.
Senator, I do not believe law enforcement is or should be obsolete.
Okay, or defunded.
Or defunded.
Okay. The organization apparently also called for dismissing all charges against rioters from the protest in Chicago. Black Lives Matter uprising. Are you familiar that the organization called for that?
Senator, again, I didn't have any personal involvement in that. That was before my time as being executive director.
When did you become executive director?
It was it was in December of 2021.
Okay. So I think the riots occurred in 2021. Are you familiar with the position of the organization asking the mayor of Chicago to drop all charges against the rioters?
Senator, only because I read it in that article that you're referring to.
But it's news to you until then.
That's
until
right.
This article.
That's right. And as I said, I looked into it.
Well, let's put it this way. If you're a part of the organization and it's news to you that the organization wanted, what would we say if somebody came up and said, I want everybody in January 6th to be let go? I don't. I want them to be prosecuted because I think they broke the law. So I guess my point is there comes a point that this organization has done some pretty radical things. You never heard about the position of telling the mayor of Chicago to let them all go?
Senator, let me be very clear that I understand fundamentally that the position I've been nominated for is to leave all advocacy behind.
My question is, did you know? And if you didn't know, how could you not know?
Well, Senator, at the time, I was an attorney in the D.C. office. I had no oversight over that.
I don't mean to belabor the point. My time's over. And here's the point. You're becoming executive director. Somebody saw you as promotable. Okay? They want to promote you. This organization's taking some pretty extreme views. You say you don't know anything about it except you read this article. It's hard for me to imagine promoting somebody, an organization that calls for all the rioters to be let go in Chicago, and the person they're promoting doesn't share those views.
Senator, what I can say is that I've worked closely with law enforcement on these issues, and as I discussed before, it's actually been a bridge-building, coalition-building process working with organizations
Thank you very much,
across the
sir.
spectrum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Blumenthal?
Ms. Yun, thank you very much, and thank you to all the nominees for being here today, and congratulations to you and your family. Ms. Yun, I'm interested in your view of the ethics challenges facing corporate America today, and whether you think that federal authorities are doing enough to set guardrails and safeguards against conflicts of interest, violations of federal law by the corporate leaders and corporations themselves in this country.
Thank you, Senator. As the Vice President of Corporate Integrity, I am overseeing the ethics program at Capital One. It's been a privilege of my professional career to be able to do so, and I have learned quite a bit about ethics and compliance in corporate settings. I think that it's important that our corporations and officers behave honestly and ethically, and every corporation has responsibility to have a code of ethics as well as awareness campaign to make sure that associates follow the code of ethics and stay ethical and honest. As to what policymakers should do, that is not something I think as a judicial nominee I could comment on, but as somebody serving in the ethics and compliance area, I do believe that it's paramount that corporations pay attention to the ethical culture as well as the bottom line.
And you'd be sensitive to those concerns, and I would hope all the nominees would be as well. Mr. Ali, you have a truly inspiring American story. In fact, so do really all the nominees this morning. Different stories, but all of them deeply impressive and inspiring American stories. I'd like to ask you, because you've received some questions about past activities, the MacArthur Foundation, would any of the positions or statements made by the foundation, or you as a member of that foundation staff, have any impact on your service as a United States District Court judge?
Absolutely not, Senator.
Let me ask, also, has your experience working in that foundation informed your personality about the meaning of justice in America? Perhaps one of the reasons why your parents and Ms. Yun's and others before them because we all have an immigrant story. So does each of you, maybe going back a little bit farther. I do, going back just one generation, my father, a German immigrant. But that seeking justice here, has your work in the MacArthur Foundation informed your feelings about that value?
Senator, I've been very privileged in my career to represent large corporations in private practice and to represent some of the most needy folks in the United States. And I've had the incredible privilege of arguing before the United States Supreme Court. And I actually walked past the court this morning. And every time I do go there to argue, I look up on my way in and see those 4 words, equal justice under law. That has greatly informed my thinking. That said, I understand and appreciate, because of the profound respect I have for our Constitution, the very different role that I would be called upon to have if confirmed as a federal district court judge.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hawley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to all the nominees. Thank you for being here. Mr. Ali, if I could just come back to you, I want to follow up on what Senator Graham was asking, because I didn't hear all of your answers. I just want to make sure that I understand where you are on these issues. So just to set the table here, you're the president and executive director of the MacArthur Justice Center. Is that correct?
Senator, that's correct. I have one other disclosure for you, which is that I'm also a 49ers fan.
Oh,
and
no.
So I'm just
Starting
apologizing in
quickly.
advance for what Christian McCaffrey and and Debo Samuel will
Trash
unleash
talk.
on your
Oh, my
Chiefs
gosh.
this Sunday.
Oh, my gosh. Here we go. All right. I'll come back to that. So let's just clarify some things you said to Senator Graham. So your organization, the MacArthur Justice Center, has expressed support in the past for the defund the police movement. I'm looking here at public statements, public comments that the organization has made, calling for defunding the police, hashtag defund the police. Here's one. Here's the second one. I know you're familiar with these. And I thought I heard you say to Senator Graham that you disagree with this, that you do not support defund the police. I just want to make sure I got that right.
Senator, that's right. I have never taken that position, nor would I, for any number of reasons. One of which I'd like to say is that I work closely with law enforcement on these issues of accountability, public safety, and confidence in law enforcement.
Okay, good. So to the extent that the center has in the past taken this position, that does not reflect your views and doesn't reflect your leadership. Is that fair to say?
That's right. So much so that I looked into that and tried to figure out how that hashtag, I understand there was an article describing 2 tweets that had been made, looked into that, and I'm still to this day puzzled how that happened. But they were before my time as executive director.
Well, you say puzzled why the center expressed those views? Is that what you're saying?
To my knowledge, the center itself has never taken the position of defund the police.
Okay, and you disagree with that position. You disagree with the defund the police position. Okay, let me ask you about something else I think Senator Graham was touching on. My understanding is that the MacArthur Center asked the Chicago State Attorney's Office to dismiss all the charges against rioters following the BLM riots in the summer of 2020. Do I have that right? And if so, do you agree with that?
Senator, my understanding of that circumstance is that the attorneys in that office, I wasn't a part of that office at the time, represented individuals who were peaceful protesters and represented community groups. And so that letter took place in the course of advocacy that I wasn't personally involved in, so I'm not intimately familiar with the fact.
Okay, you would not support, though, dismissing charges against rioters who committed acts of vandalism, violence, etc., as a general matter?
Senator, I believe that people who are a risk to public safety need to be accountable and need to be held pending those charges if they're a risk to public safety. And I understand the law to require that.
Let me ask you, since you said pending, my understanding is the MacArthur Center also opposes pretrial detention. Is that right?
Senator, so let me be very clear. I believe that if somebody is a risk to public safety, they should be held. And federal law requires that. The Bail Reform Act requires that, in addition to some other considerations. And if confirmed to be a federal district court judge, I would apply that law without reservation.
So I got you. So just the center, though, am I wrong? They don't oppose. Your center does not oppose pretrial detention. Am I wrong about that?
Senator, there's no categorical opposition to pretrial detention, as I understand it. The United States Supreme Court has been very clear that someone cannot be detained solely on account of their poverty. But to my knowledge, the Justice Center's position has been that if someone is found to be a risk to public safety, then detention is warranted under the law.
And what about the use of electronic monitoring of defendants? Does the MacArthur Center oppose that?
Senator, again, my understanding of federal law is that the supervised release provision.
Well, but I'm asking about the center, though. I'm familiar with federal law, but the center that you're the executive director of, I just want to clarify. I want to make sure I understand what your positions are.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Senator. So I haven't personally worked on a case involving electronic monitoring. I can tell you that the center is not a policy organization. We don't have a single employee in our organization who takes policies. All of our work is grounded in litigation, in a client.
Okay, let me ask you, I don't mean to interrupt you. I mean, I do mean to interrupt you, but I don't mean to be rude about it. I'm almost out of time. Let me just ask you this. The director, as I understand it, of your Illinois office referred to electronic monitoring as replacing one form of incarceration with another. Does that reflect your views or the views of your organization? How about, does it reflect your views? Let's just get to that.
Senator, I'm not sure I fully understand what that would mean under federal law. I can tell you that the Bail Reform Act, the Sentencing Reform Act, and the supervised release provision require supervision in certain circumstances, first and foremost, when there is a risk to public safety and a need to protect the public.
Well, my time's expired, and I know that there are other colleagues here who want to ask you questions. I appreciate your answers. This is helpful. My concern has been that the center that you're the executive director of seems to take positions to me that seem, frankly, a little extreme. So maybe those aren't your positions. I'll give you some more questions for the record. I was so nice to you, even though you're a 49ers fan. It's horrible. But the Chiefs, I know I was really nice. The Chiefs are going to win by 10, at least. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll watch together.
Without objection, we're going to enter into the record a letter sent in support of Mr. Ali's nomination by current and former prosecutors in the Department of Justice. The letter says the undersigned state and federal prosecutors and Department of Justice officials hold diverse political ideologies and affiliations, yet we do share an unwavering respect and admiration for Amir Ali. Without objection, that'll be entered into the record. Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to each of you and welcome to all of your friends and family. To ensure the fitness to serve of the nominees who come before any of the committees on which I sit, I ask the following two initial questions, and we'll just go right down the line, starting with Mr. Ali. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement related to this kind of conduct?
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
There have been a number of questions to Mr. Ali regarding defunding the police, and I just want to note for the record, Mr. Chairman, that there is a letter of support that he received from the Law Enforcement Action Partnership, a nonprofit of law enforcement officials advocating for policies to make communities safer. I'd like to note that for the record. Mr. Ali, throughout your career, you have dedicated substantial time to pro bono service, and the McCarthy Justice Center, which you lead, provides all of its legal representation free of charge to clients. Why is access to legal services so important to you?
Thank you, Senator. I believe that access to legal services and the services provided by the Justice Center in its advocacy is essential to the rule of law. I think that often, understandably, people think of the outcome of cases when they think of the rule of law. But there's also the process. And our adjudicative system is dependent upon quality counsel on both sides of every case to get to the right outcome.
Well, I do agree with you. Ms. Yun, as a first-generation Korean American, if confirmed, you would be the first Asian American federal judge in the state of Virginia. Pretty amazing, all of the number of firsts, thanks to this president and his commitment to a diverse and representative judiciary. Why is diverse representation on the bench so important to you?
Thank you, Senator. I think for two reasons. One is that it certainly increases confidence in our judiciary when people can look to the bench and know that the diversity on the bench reflects the diversity of the constituents. And second, I think the role modeling function of the judiciary is absolutely important. And I think having a diversity in all its kinds and forms is important so that people can know that their interests will be well heard and that the judiciary will take up their concerns without any bias. And for those reasons, I think the diversity on the bench is really important.
Judge Dubose, it's really interesting to me that you taught for a number of years. How many years did you teach?
Thank you, Senator. So just about 10 years.
So we don't often have nominees who have been teachers. So that must have been a very challenging experience to be a teacher. So have those experiences as a teacher informed your work as a judge?
Thank you for the question. I would say that my teaching experience has informed and molded every aspect of my professional life. The skills of a classroom teacher standing before 25 to 30 students who are coming into class with varying degrees of trauma, hopes, dreams, joys, and you're trying to focus them with a common mission. It takes a lot of patience and the ability to listen. And so meeting my students where they were really has helped me to become an active listener, but also someone who can empathize with the folks that I'm working with.
Thank you. For Mr. Hajani, you have presided over several naturalization ceremonies, and in the very court, your own parents were naturalized. Would you like to share with us what it was like for you to preside over these services for your own parents?
Senator, thank you for that question. It's been an absolute joy and pleasure to preside over naturalization ceremonies for our court. It's one of the proudest moments for us judges to be able to naturalize hundreds of citizens to become Americans. And as you noted, my own parents were naturalized in the court that I sit in now. And I tell that story to new folks who want to become citizens, and I tell them that anything is possible in America. The fact that I am there before them, naturalizing them, is proof of the American dream, that if you work hard, and you study and you take care of your neighbors and you do your best, your American dream will come true. And I look at their eyes and they are also thankful for that opportunity and the journey they had to get to America, which is not an easy journey. A lot of waiting, a lot of patience, a lot of worry. But they make it, and those days are days that I remember.
I agree. And Ms. Yun, you've gone through that proceeding yourself, as have I. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to each of you. Mr. Ali, I understand that you have disavowed the defund the police movement.
Senator, I've made clear that I've never taken that position, and I wouldn't for any number of reasons.
Even though the senator did. Let me ask you about, I know you live in D.C., and so crime in D.C. The D.C. City Council has cut the police budget by $15 million. The resources for D.C. police were decimated, and crime is out of control. Yet we've seen a former Trump administration official that was murdered and carjackings. So do you agree with what the D.C. City Council is doing to defund the police?
Senator, as I've made clear, I've never taken the position of defunding the police, nor would I. And I've worked closely with law enforcement precisely because I care, in addition to accountability, about public safety very deeply, including in the district.
Thank you for that. I do want to talk with you about some of the clients that you've represented. I do a lot on protecting women and children, and you have filed a number of briefs in federal court representing rapists, terrorists, and child sexual abusers. And every criminal defendant deserves adequate representation. We talk about that here in this committee, and I want to be sure to get you on the record about your involvement in some of these cases involving child sexual abuse material. The chairman has done a good bit of work on that. We recently had a nominee come before us, Seth Aframe, who refused to follow sentencing guidelines in a horrific child pornography case, and the guidelines were for a life sentence, but he sought 60 years. So given your previous work representing the interest of criminals with child sexual abuse, I want to get you on the record. Is there ever a scenario in which you would deviate from the sentencing guideline recommendations of life imprisonment for a crime involving the sexual abuse of a child?
Senator, if I could just say at the outset, I have represented multiple victims of violence. I have represented, the center has represented numerous people who were victims of child abuse and child sexual abuse. And so I have seen firsthand how devastating that can be to families.
So let me ask you about Hire versus the Bureau of Prisons. You recall that?
I'm not familiar with that
Well,
one.
the MacArthur Center filed an amicus brief on behalf of a criminal defendant who was previously convicted of unconscionable conduct, abducting a 10-year-old boy at knife point, raping him, burying him alive. It's horrifying. And the defendant also admitted to molesting more than 40 children. Think about that. So it is my understanding that when this amicus brief was filed in 2019, you were overseeing the center's DC office. In fact, you've been an integral part of the center's work for many years. So are you comfortable with the center's representation of a defendant who committed these heinous acts?
So, Senator, let me just say at the outset that the center has represented a number of people who are victims of child sexual abuse and horrific.
This is a child
crime.
molester.
Yes,
This is a child abuser that the center filed an amicus brief on behalf.
I was just acknowledging the kind of seeing firsthand how devastating that can be. I think it's important at the outset of discussing any of these sorts of issues. I'm not familiar with the matter you referred to. I was the director of the DC office. I wasn't the director of the entire organization or overseeing all of the amicus briefs. So I'm not familiar with that particular case. I'd be happy to look into it and understand the context. I can tell you, though, Senator, that when we file an amicus brief in a case, it is not about the specific tragic fact. It's about a broader principle of law that is applicable beyond that particular case.
Thank you. I want to move on. Judge Dubose, I want to come to you. I know that there's been discussion about you saying that using the I was in a Marxist phase and an explanation for that. Do you understand why that causes us pause?
Thank you for the question, Senator. And yes, it does. And I have to say, when I was given a copy of that article yesterday, I was shocked. I had no idea. When I read the article, I couldn't understand the context. If you had that opportunity to read it, there were some things that were placed in quotes. There were some points where the student was writing about herself. So I, as I sit here today, don't even recall having that.
As you sit here today, will you right now disavow the basic tenets of Marxism?
As I mentioned, Senator, I am not, nor I've ever been.
No.
I am not a Marxist. I do not espouse Marxist theory or ideology. I never have. I never will. I'm a very proud Democrat here and part of a Democrat. Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Booker?
I'm a passer.
Senator Padilla? Senator Ossoff?
Given what we have going on the floor, Mr. Chairman, I'll submit some questions for the record. Thank you.
Senator Butler?
The same, Chair. There's a number of things happening, and I pass and will submit questions to the nominees later.
Senator Welch?
I pass as well, but thank the panel very much.
Well, I want to thank the nominees, and there will be a period of time when written questions may be submitted by any of the senators on the panel. Thank your family and friends for joining in this historic occasion in each of your lives. And at that point, the meeting of the Senate Judiciary Committee stands adjourned.